continuing our Sunday, I guess, I don't even know what you call this Dragon Ball Dream series. Um, we're going to do Gogeta, Vegito, and Gotenks in one stream. I was actually debating whether to include them all together, but then I realized how few appearances they as a collective group have made throughout the series, so that's pretty much what convinced me to kind of just shove them all in one stream instead of a separate stream for each character because they're basically restricted to cameos at this point. So I thought we'd get the biggest, in my opinion, the most prominent one of the three out of the way, which is Gotenks. So I said before that I didn't really like Goten or Kid Trunks as characters. They kind of uh, well, in the case of Goten, he's devoid of personality. In the case of Kid Trunks, he's a poor man's version of future Trunks. But I could probably say the same thing about Kale and Khalifa from Super, where I don't really have any interest in them as separate characters. As Kefla, it was, that was a really cool fusion that just makes me hate more and more what Super did to the Patara earrings. But yeah, Gotenks comes up during the Buu arc, which is the introduction of Goten, and basically is kind of forwarded by Toriyama as the one that's going to beat Buu at that point, Super Buu, which was the present iteration of that character. Um, and he fights him. I think what is it? He fights Fat Buu one time, and then his ascended form once as well, before getting absorbed and being made into part of the furthering of more transformations for Boo. So he pretty much, basically, in the grand scheme of things, only serves to, I guess, continue the plot or make the plot drag out more. And it's really a shame because the idea that two people can fuse together and then their strength is much larger than all these other people because it's two, but they're kids or they're relatively young compared to the rest of the cast. I really like that idea, and it was I thought it was really funny how I kept saying that Goten and Kid Trunks are overpowered because they are, but I completely buy into the idea that two people fusing together is this multiplier of their strength and allows them to reach feats that they separately couldn't achieve. So one of the most I had a conversation with this person. They said that one of the more iconic images for them in the Buu arc was seeing Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks because Toriyama actually foreshadowed it by having them, Goten and Trunks, asked to see Super Saiyan 3 Goku and him complying and showing them that form, and how it's a lot easier for that person to buy into the idea that these two fused kids who have a much, what's a good word for it, have more potential than one person by themselves could achieve that form over someone like Vegeta or Gohan or any of these other people. But yeah, that a lot of it has to do with just the sheer ridiculousness of this little kid having all this power. And he was a pretty cool gag character. He was able to he had the little bar ability. I'm forgetting its name currently. Um, that he used on Boo. He was just a really entertaining character that I almost wish Toriyama had found a way. And I've said before they should have made Gotenks a Patara era fusion before they retconned and said that it wasn't permanent, and then had them stay fused. And we could have had a way more interesting, fun character than what we ended up getting. Oh wow, thanks Megumi. I appreciate it. I'm very flattered. I could almost blush. Yeah, I really do appreciate it. I'm kind of stumped. But yeah, I was saying that when you have a character like that, And the total role they end up having in the Boo arc is to just basically stall for time and then get turned into a piece of a fusion. It's really disappointing. And there are a lot of people who mischaracterize my criticisms of Super as being like, you are a Z fanboy or you're with nostalgia. And I said, if that's true, I would love the Boo arc because I first saw that when I was in my relative youth. So, you know, a lot of the problems that start up, or rather that have become very prominent in Super, really start up during Z. Oh, it's fine, Megumi. That's what the replay button is for. There are a whole bunch of streams I missed that people have done. I just go and replay it. Besides Megumi, yesterday's stream was kind of. It starts off all right, but toward the end, I was just going like this because I'd been up. That was at around I think 4 p.m. And I had been up for I think it was like 20 plus hours, so I was pretty tired. Like right after the stream, I went to sleep. So it was just me saying, "Let me get this live show out of the way. I'm not gonna risk, passing out and then not waking up until midnight." I'm just saying, I do like the stream, but it was hampered a little bit by the. I don't want to call it my physical impairment, but I was fairly tired. So, but yeah, I give critiques to the board simply to say that even if it's part of Z, I can still have issue with it, and it just could have been written better. If I was writing, for example, and I didn't want Gotenks to beat the main villain, I would have had him at the very least be part of the fight against Kid Buu, which is something I mentioned before. That my biggest issues with that fight are the fact that it basically takes all the characters that aren't Goku and Vegeta and completely sideslides them for the last major fight of the series. Oh, they put their arm up and they were part of the spirit bomb. Yeah, but so did everybody else on Earth. But they could have had Gotenks fight Kid Buu. They could have had him. Um, there was a lot of stuff they could have done with that character. Was definitely interested, especially uh, the beginning of the stream. But yeah, oh, where I foreshadowed I'm gonna eventually this week talk about the broad that was scared into silence by my voice. That just by hearing my voice, like, man, I still can't believe that. Actually, I told you when you hear some of this stuff, it almost sounds like a cartoon. That's why I have to keep putting all these screenshots up because I almost don't believe it, even after having experienced it. It's so insane. Oh my god. But yeah, let me get back to saying this. Um, in Super, they waste Gotenks as well. I think he only shows up twice. He's in Battle of Gods, the movie slash the horrible adaptation, and he's also in that. What is that? There's like a little the copy Vegeta arc, whatever that arc is called. But outside of that, they don't use him, which is a damn shame because in the future Trunks arc, let me read Kevin's comments. I own all DB, DBZ, DBGT vids, and I haven't watched a single episode of Super. Am I missing out? Well, I would say no, because the first two arcs of Super are just the 14th and 15th Dragon Ball Z movies stretched out, and save for a couple of episodes, they don't really add anything to the story. Uh, the tournament, the Universe 6 tournament is okay, but it's still I would say no. I lean toward no. They've got about 3 or 4 bad arcs, one that I think is okay. That's about it. Megumi says, "Yeah, that was damn insane. Like, really?" And Megumi, she even like, this isn't even just a thing where I think it. One of her friends admitted that's why she did that. You had your mic off so that I wouldn't hear your voice, like you got some sacred whisper. But yeah, Kevin, I would just say that. Kevin, I actually have this week a whole video because I said I'm not going to do a stream on him because he's only in Super. I'm gonna do a whole video on why Goku Black was wasted. Kevin, he starts off really, really good, and they just, I mean, it's almost criminal what they do with him. They got away with murder with that character. Also, Kevin, out of 5 arcs, him and Zamasu are the only actual villains that Super created. Uh, yes and no. Oob is not in the show, so he's not in the Super anime, but he is in the manga. It's right before the Tournament of Power. There's a brief panel of him in his village when he's being talked about by Dende. So he is technically in Super, but he's in the manga, but not the show. I'll put it that way. But anyways, like I was saying, they waste Gotenks in Super. They could have had him in the Tournament of Power. They could have had him fight Black, and I even gave the Future Trunks arc credit for using Kid Trunks probably the most effectively in any arc that he's in outside of the Buu arc, because they give him a lot of interesting dialogue with Future Trunks, and I was really happy about that because we've never seen those two iterations of Trunks interact in any of the. I don't think in anything. I think maybe in some games, and that's about it. But out of like the canon material, the quote unquote canon material, and then in GT they actually tease Gotenks because when Baby is, I guess, wrecking things as Vegeta and the baby Vegeta, Grade A baby Vegeta is wrecking things. You have Goten and Trunks mention fusing, and then Super Saiyan 4 Goku's like, no, that won't work. So we never get to see it. We never have seen an adult, a canonical adult Gotenks. We saw it in Heroes, but I kind of just pretend like that show doesn't exist because it's not really interesting to me. I call it Zeros for a reason. No, Gotenks is a really he's just way more interesting to me than Goten or Trunks, and it's really a shame that they use him so awfully. Like I'd say probably if there were any Saiyans besides Goku, Vegeta, Gohan, and Future Trunks that are actually worth seeing more of, arc after arc, it would be Gotenks. All right, so that, but God, that's why I said Dragon Ball is such a frustrating series because they have all these really cool characters and they just kind of just keep pushing them down in terms of what they're allowed to do and screen time and whatnot. GT is huge downgrade. The Shenrons and Super Saiyan 4 is sexy though. Yeah, Super Saiyan 4 is the best transformation, in my opinion, in the whole series outside of the original and 3. And unlike the forms, Kevin, by the way, in Super, they have it, and I'm not even joking, they have at least one new form every arc. And in every arc, that form gets like no explanation for how they got it. Like I'm not joking. There are 5 new Super Saiyan forms in Super, and outside of the first 2, which are God and Super Saiyan Blue, no explanation for the rest of them. They just get them. No, they don't call them 5, 6, and 7. Super treats GT like it didn't happen. So basically it's like a separate continuity from GT where it still follows Z, but GT doesn't exist anymore. But they've got God and Super Saiyan God, and then the rest of the forms are for other characters like Black, for example. I'm glad you brought him up because I'm definitely gonna be taking a crack at him. I wrote a whole that script was like 8 or 9 pages. It should be out by Thursday because I've got most of it edited, not edited, but written out. I'm gonna record it later today. Yeah, they're not utilizing all the characters to their full potential as usual. Well, that's what makes Gotenks frustrating because he's a younger version of the supposed main characters of the series who has more potential than either of them. And they just arc after arc won't even let him have an appearance. Just stupid. So That's my opinion on Gotenks. Let's go over to, I guess, which one should we do next? Vegito. So I've always been more a fan of the Potara era fusion than the other one with the fusion dance because in Z it actually was established as having consequences. The idea that you can't get out of this fusion after you're in it. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. That means that they actually have to, there's a risk in using this ability. And his fight against Super Boo is so entertaining. Like the part where he gets turned into chocolate and like the little chocolate ball, and it just starts popping through and hitting him as a little ball. Or during that same fight when Boo turns into, I guess it's like a liquid version of himself and pours into Vegito's mouth. And he's like, I'm going to tear you up from the inside. And then Vegito starts punching different parts of himself. This show passed me by, too lazy to watch all 100 episodes from scratch. Well, Kevin, I wouldn't recommend doing it anyway. When the show was airing, both when it was in Japanese and then in English, I completely skipped over the Battle of Gods and Resurrection F arcs because they're just the movies stretched out. So it's probably when you cut those out, it's probably like a little bit over 100. Now the Resurrection F arc is horrible, man. Like it looks bad. Its pacing is awful. Just and then the worst part is it was Toriyama's idea for the show to be like that. Let's have a new show where we remake movies that we just saw a few years ago. Except now they'll be crappier looking and stretched out. It's like, why do you think it was a movie? Because it's not supposed to be drawn out to whatever. They're complete idiots, man. I swear. I don't know I don't know what's happened to him since Z ended, but he's had some really bad ideas. But yeah, Vegito's fight against Super Boo was good. His design is cool. He's got this mixture of Goku and Vegeta's clothes, where he's got Vegeta's shoes and Goku's gi, except with inverted colors. Uh, just the only problem I have with Vegito is because he's so barely a character. Like we only have seen him twice since he's existed. We really don't know much about the extent of his powers, and it's a really big issue when we know that Gotenks, who is made from Goten and Kid Trunks, and theoretically is weaker than Goku and Vegeta, because the fusion. Basically, if Gotenks can get Super Saiyan 3, and we know that both Goten and Kid Trunks are weaker than Goku and Vegeta, I really wish they would show us or tell us if Vegito can get Super Saiyan 3 or some other form. Uh, Technically, Kevin. So there's an episode where Goku and Krillin go into this forest and all the old villains appear as hallucinations, but that's about it as far as if Nappa comes back or not. It's like a cameo, pretty much. That's actually one of my favorite episodes of the show because uh, it kind of addresses Krillin's character arc. Like, you get killed over and over, and you just have this innate fear of fighting again. Yeah, he gets a little cameo. Except in GT, that was actually him. In Super, it's just a illusion of him. I think it's still a good episode. Like I would at least give that one a watch. And you can watch it without having seen the rest of the show because it's a standalone one. Now, the only arc of Super I'd recommend is the last one because the Future Trunks arc really just pissed me off with God. It started off really good and it spiraled into having literally the worst ending of any arc of Dragon Ball ever. Like you could take the ending of every single other arc of this series or this franchise, and that would be the worst one. Just in terms of endings for an arc, that was awful. completely erased the point of any of it having. I just, oh my god, I feel like I got post traumatic stress disorder every time I talk about that arc. I just recently found out that in addition to being based on the Monkey King from Journey to the West tale, Goku's character is also based on Japanese tale of Kintaro. Hmm, I've been missing Ruben. I don't know where he's been. I've been thumbing up his tweets on Twitter. He's been ignoring me. Just vanished. I thought Goku was based off Superman. No, Kevin. What they do is they like to say online, "Who could win in the fight, Goku or Superman?" And I always thought that was so stupid because if they're operating in the rules of their own universe, wouldn't you have to take like it's dumb to me. That's why every time I saw somebody ask that question, I just roll my eyes. And then the fact that they've actually made videos showing who would win, I was like, really? Toriyama had a Superman parody character in Doctor Slump. I don't talk about Doctor Slump. We only acknowledge Dragon Ball here. So I don't need to hear about Aurelia or any of those other people. Naruto versus Goku. You know, there have actually been people that make fun of how weak the Naruto characters are. They're like, Yamcha could wreck the whole village. And that would be funny if they have an arc of Super where Yamcha just takes out a whole bunch of ninjas in reference to that comment, that claim, that boast. Anyways, we don't see Vegito again until the Future Trunks arc. And just a little bit of background on that, because I actually know this for a fact. And if you don't believe me, you can go look this up. Toriyama with Zamasu. I'm assuming because I know Kevin hasn't seen, so I'm a little bit reluctant to specifically state all of what happened. But Toriyama wanted Goku and Vegeta as Super Saiyan Blues to take out Zamasu together, and it was supposed to be this the first time we've ever seen two characters that are on the good side take out a fused character. And then Toyotaro, who's the guy who does the Super manga, was like, "We need to bring back Vegito because fans expect Vegito to show up." Yeah. So they bring him back. And then right as he's starting to fight um, Zamasu, he unfuses. So he's because the reason for that is because Super introduced a new idea, which is that the Patara earrings are only permanent if you are a Kai. So if you're like Supreme Kai or some other person that's a Kai, and because Goku and Vegeta aren't, the fusion doesn't last like it was supposed to, which is it's one of the dumbest things that the series has done ever because it completely erases the stakes of that form. Uh, he does, but they don't do anything with him, Kevin. They have him as one of the quote unquote main characters of the last arc, and he has the worst performance of anybody. Like he's probably in my top 8 favorite characters of the series, and I don't even know what was the point of including them for how awful they treated him. But in the manga, Kevin, the current arc that's going on, the Moro saga, they do let Tien beat one of the henchmen. So I guess there's that. Goku versus Godzilla. The Godzilla movies have the same problem where Godzilla kept getting more and more overpowered every movie. Yeah, I don't know how this is good storytelling because it basically means that the movie after that you just get thrown to the wayside. Like the villains can't even keep up at all, or the other characters. Megumi says Tien just gets ignored and been made redundant. To be honest, yeah, they completely misuse him, which is a real shame because he's one of the few characters who keeps training despite being outclassed. So he actually has a pretty more of a moral character than probably anybody in the show other than Piccolo or Vegeta, because he specifically trains so that the Earth will have at least a warrior that tries at the very least. Oh, Kevin, you know PyCon actually isn't canon. Like he's not in the manga at all. He was just an idea by Toei. Because I've seen a lot of people who think that he's, cool. It was like, yeah, but tell that to Toriyama. He didn't make him. Like Broly became canon before. Oh, PyCon's not even in GT. Damn. And Gogeta was in GT, and he's supposed to be non-canon as well. Godzilla, okay, okay. Also keeps getting bigger and bigger too with every movie. Pretty soon, Godzilla will be able to peek into outer space. I just picture seeing this big, huge lizard just stretching out from the earth. Yeah, I just realized that Tien is the real pure character out of the DB main characters. Well, think about it. Tien's the only one that trains specifically to save Earth. And then Krillin's the only one that actually uses his powers to help Earth that while being an officer. Like it has like they're the only two with a moral compass. Everybody else just like whatever. It's like, yeah, I have powers, but I'm not gonna actually use them unless the world is in danger or threat or trouble. Piccolo is still a main and super, right? Uh he's got a crappy role in Battle of Gods. He's got an okay role in Resurrection F, which is the second arc, and then in the third arc, he's part of the main team for Universe 7. It's him, Goku, Vegeta, and Fat Boo, and he has the worst showing of anyone on that team other than Fat Boo. And then in the Tournament of Power, they use him basically to kind of he's all right there. I'd say the only arc that they really use him effectively is Tournament of Power. Oh yeah, they use him really awfully in GT. They bring him back just to get one shotted by Baby and then sacrifice himself and vanish for the rest of the show. And the worst part about it is that right after he dies is when we get to see 17 come back, and we never get to see him in 17 have like a rematch or anything. Because I actually mentioned this on the which stream was that? Basically, what I would have wanted for the Super 17 arc was for when because Piccolo went to hell was for him to meet his dad and then they fuse together and then fight like have enough power to be equal with Super 17. So it's two Piccolos versus two 17s. Because it would make sense for King Piccolo to be in hell. And then you could say that he's gotten stronger by fighting all the different villains that are down there, and then the power of them together either is equal to or slightly above that of Super 17. But because that was the Goku show, we don't get stuff like that. Now Megumi loves GT. He likes the way they treat everybody. He's still mad at me for not doing that GT centric video I was talking about. I only didn't do that because I was trying to get the Goku Black one out this week on Friday, and I was like, yeah, I'm tired, so I just aborted putting it out. Look at the envoy saying hello, and he's upset that I didn't say hi to him when he wrote that. It's like, where's my response? It's like, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset him. They have a whole bunch of good characters that just get just trashed. But yeah, Kevin, I do like the way that they use Piccolo for the Tournament of Power for the most part. You know, really the only people in that arc that they don't use that well are probably Tien and then maybe Krillin, and that's about it. Not surprising to see talking about fusions. Well, I was saying the only one of them that I really liked was Gotenks, and they kind of just don't have him show up anymore because they're afraid to use Goten and Trunks ever. Well, no one's trying to not make it your favorite, but I mean, like Z is my favorite, and I still critique it. I still can admit if they do certain characters dirty. So you can like something and not like certain parts of it. Let's see. Uh, the GT special is horrible with Goku Jr. and Vegeta Jr. Yeah, I don't know what was the point of those two. They kind of just seem like even more blatant rip-offs of Goku and Vegeta than Goten and Trunks. Well, I guess Kid Trunks is more like a rip-off of, I don't know, they with that character, it feels like Toriyama was screwed one way or the other because if you make him too much like Future Trunks, then you're just gonna be ripping his character off. But if you make him act differently, then like, he really was written into a corner with that. That's why I said if it was just Kid Trunks as like the only, like just him by himself, I don't really have a problem with. But no, he really got screwed over by having him because it was a no-win situation. All right, let me get over to the redeeming aspect of Gogeta is his amazing design, especially Super Saiyan 4. He was handled well in the Janemba movie. Well, I was actually making the argument, shouldn't Janemba be canon? Because well not what's a good word for it? Shouldn't Janemba have been canon in GT? If Gogeta was canon in that, and the only appearance he'd made outside of GT was in Fusion Reborn, which coincidentally, not coincidentally, but I always remember that film as the only movie from Z that doesn't have Krillin in it. That's the only movie he's not in. Who is Turles? I thought he was Goku Black. No, Turles is the main villain from Tree of Might that looks like Goku, but that they have nothing to do with each other because Turles uh, is just a villain from that movie, which apparently isn't even canon. They're just two characters that look alike, basically. Which says that's a good point. I did like Shenron 2 in GT. Yeah, I don't really no. Hey, Megumi, you'll like this. My favorite appearance of Gogeta is in GT when he shows up against Omega Shenron. It's really weird too because in Fusion Reborn, he's not depicted as being, and I guess maybe it's because he doesn't have that much screen time in that film, but he's not depicted as really being that cocky. So they basically make him Vegito when he shows up in GT. Man, Janemba's one of my just the best looks of any villain in any of the series. His second form, not the first one. The first form is just basically Fat Boob, the yellow version. I don't know who designed him. This one guy said he's just a little demon with midriff because he's got that purple shirt that shows off his stomach. Oh, my favorite part about Janemba outside of the Fusion Reborn is that there's like a thing with the game designers where they're trying to make him and Kid Buu friends where they've had games where they'll talk to each other and they won't even no one will understand what they're saying except each other and they had one game where they were ruling hell together. This is weird. Like the only thing they have in common is they're the only two villains from probably the entire series that we can't understand what they're saying. Sad we don't see much of it though. There's a whole bunch of stuff we don't see much of anymore. Omega Shenron and Android 13, coolest looking villain. Yeah, I like Omega Shenron's design. I just hate that they don't use him earlier in the Shadow Dragon arc. Like they kind of just have him just appear and then he's the second before Super came out. He was the second strongest character in the entire franchise. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff that gets just completely wasted. Omega Shenron look menacing and a strong, worthy villain. No, I don't. I'm not even saying he wasn't. I just hate that we don't get to see that much of him because they stick him all the way at the end of the arc, and then it's a couple of episodes of them fighting him, and then we just kind of don't see like you know what I'm saying. That they, I think it would have been better if they had used him earlier. Is Tarble in Super? Um, Actually, he's made non-canon by Super because the Battle of Gods movie has Bulma mention him or reference him rather, and then in that same scene he doesn't get mentioned. So apparently, Super made him not a character anymore. Which is really really lame. But again, they weren't going to use him anyway. They've been on their Goku and Vegeta suckage fest. The underused villains from the entire series, including movies and GT, have more reasons to get brought back than future Trunks and everyone else brought back in Super. Envoy says, "Were you into Yu-Gi-Oh?" I was into the first show and then GX, and after that, it just kind of petered off. So maybe I hope that answers your question. I remember it's time to do when I used to have all the little cards. What was it? Blue Eyes, White Dragon, Karibo, Dark Magician, Magician Girl. I remember that show. And then James says, "I kinda was." I don't know what he means. Oh yeah, I know they do because I've been on there before. The only wiki that's screwed up is the Dragon Ball one. That one is run by clowns, like I mentioned before. Are there any new Saiyan characters in Super? Yeah. In the Universe 6 arc, we get Kaba, who is, in my opinion, the best non-evil Saiyan that gets introduced. And then in the universe, not well, I'm trying to go in chronological order. So in Universe 6, we get Kaba. That's the third arc of Super. The next arc, we get Black. Uh, and then the arc after that, we get Kale, Caulifla, and Kefla. So that's about five new Saiyans. And then if you count the Broly movie, then that's six. Garlic Jr. was a horrible arc. Oh, I kind of actually like that arc because I don't know. In hindsight, it's literally the last time Goku and Vegeta don't screw things up because they're not there. It was a nice character spotlight for Gohan, Piccolo, and Krillin, and it kind of got ripped off a little bit by the baby saga in GT in terms of like making all the characters evil, like outside of a couple of them because they're possessed. Oh, by the way, Megumi, did you ever notice this that the baby arc makes Garlic Jr. canon because they use the what was it, the black water mist to cure people from baby's possession? Looking back at it, Justin has made me dislike Jiren even more. I'm Team Dispo. Like I said, I like the whole Galactic Patrol except him. He's just a boring character that is a cardboard cutout meant to waste people's time and have no investment whatsoever. He didn't have to be that way. Let's see, did I miss anything? Okay, let me do the Gogeta stuff. Okay, so he shows up, first time Fusion Reborn, very little itty bitty scene. Um, it's really cool, even though we don't get much of his actual character being used. And then he shows up again in the Shadow Dragons arc, where Goku and Vegeta fuse into him, and it's like I think a whole episode of him just embarrassing Omega Shenron, and then they unfuse because of course they do. Let me see. Toriyama just outright ripped off Bulma's design, his own character, to make that chick in the Garlic Jr. arc. Yeah, Marin. She's basically just Bulma if she was actually a bimbo or thought or whatever. I like how she's one of the main characters of that. Like the main characters of that arc are her, Gohan, Piccolo, Krillin, and Vegeta. She's the only character that doesn't get possessed outside of those other four. That means she was the last chick that wasn't turned into a Garlic Jr. slave on Earth. Now, me and Kevin are gonna have to fight because he's over there talking trash about Dead Zone, that wonderful film that started the genre of Dragon Ball Z movies. Oh yeah, I didn't mention that one of the reasons that Vegeta's like barely in any of the early movies is because uh Tori, like the Toei, the staff didn't know if because they never use main villains in the films ever, so they didn't know if he was going to be like a regular character or be on the heroes team or whatever. That's why he doesn't show up until the second Cooler movie. And Megumi's over there laughing. I like the Garlic Jr. arc. It's a nice character. Like just I guess in hindsight, the fact that those three characters really don't get used that much anymore, it makes me like it a lot more. Even if the villain is kind of goofy. And it's basically oh, by the way, did you know that him and Android 17 have the same English voice actor? That's why we had this joke that he's like Android 17's disfigured great grandpa or something. Like you can hear it in his voice a little bit. Mm. Ruben, you missed the stream last night. I was asking Justin his thoughts on LBJ. Another, yeah, you tried to ask me that during that other stream, and I was like, yeah. Megumi says I've not seen many of the DB movies. Uh, well, they should be available online. I wouldn't even, it's funny based off of their length, they're almost more like specials than actual films because they're usually only about 40 or 50 minutes long. That's why we were able to get one of them every year when Z was airing. I mean, they're entertaining for what they are, for the most part. They follow the same formula where there's a villain that just beats everybody up and then some miracle saves them at the end of it. Let me see what else is here. They're honestly hit or miss. Some of them are pure trash. I don't know. I guess maybe uh, I'd say Wrath of Dragon's pretty meh, except for the relationship between Trunks and Tapion, because they actually do give Trunks a lot of independent characterization in that film. Like I said, I don't really have a problem with them, especially since they're not meant to be the main material anyway. They're just like a little side thing. Suddenly like him again after the recent leaks, even though we already knew. Well, that's how they work. If you do something they like one time, then you're suddenly a good person. You know how they operate. That's not new. Yeah, Gogeta had the best design of any fusion with the red hair. So the Super Saiyan 4 form. Oh, by the way, I'm forgetting what game that it was. Um, but there was a game that at the beginning of it, oh, it was I think it was Budokai 2. It had Gogeta versus Broly, and then in the Broly film that ended up actually happening, they predicted it 15 years before it actually came out. No, people used to love seeing it. Who would win, Gogeta or Broly? And it was very obvious Gogeta would win because Broly's weaker than Super Saiyan 2 Gohan. So it's like what I just thought it was funny. Like the only reason Broly is able to actually beat up Gohan in the first film is because Toriyama didn't establish Gohan as being the strongest out of the main cast at that time, myself included, which is why I take a step back from voting. I mean, hey, whatever floats your boat. I do take the time to look, so I don't take a I take a step forward. Yeah, I know Envoy is still pissed at me for not doing that hit stream. It was like I wanted you to talk about him for an hour. It's like I'll do it in the video, because I can collect my thoughts and have it more gathered. It's a lot easier to do characters that are from Z because a lot of them are in multiple arcs. So I can just kind of go, oh yeah, they did this here and I like that, but then they didn't do this. It's not Ruben, to be honest. I talk to my family in Virginia about all the time. The tension you guys are way higher in terms of politics, though. Yep, just gets worse and worse. Namagumi, I'd recommend at least seeing them before, you know, dismissing them and throwing them away. Because like with the Rolling movie, the only thing I didn't like about it was just the Saiyan slog fest. But I don't think that makes it a bad film automatically. I already said him and Black are the main two characters from Super I actually like, and they misuse both of them. Have you seen Shonen Jump's failed attempt to make Toriko popular with the? Oh, I think I did, but it was a long time ago. When did that come out? Like 2013. I forgot what year, but it was a while ago. I'd have to go see it again. It was weird seeing them cross over together. That's strange because you know the creator of One Piece was inspired by so Oda. He was inspired by Toriyama. So it's kind of nice when you see characters from their stuff interact with each other. That's why it makes Toriko just kind of seem odd. Envoy says, have you done a video on Goku Black? If not, you could do a hidden Black video. Then again, you might want to separate it. No, they would be separate. I was saying I actually wrote. Okay, the video is going to be called "Why Goku Black Was Wasted," and it's me talking about how he starts off really good, and then they start doing little stuff that screws him up to where by the time the arc is over, you almost forget he was even there to begin with. So that's coming out this week. I was gonna put it out this Friday, but I didn't want to rush it just so I could meet some arbitrary due date. Well, Zamasu could be his own separate thing because future Zamasu and regular Zamasu are more tied to each other. Regular Zamasu, present Zamasu are more tied to each other than Black is. Black is the only one of the three of them that isn't a total failure. I even made that I made this comment on one of those forums. I was like, "You guys had three versions of this is so stupid." So I said, I'm done with these writers. Oh, I don't know if Kevin is still here, but I should tell him don't watch that video if you don't want to get spoiled on the plot of that show. Megumi says we all know that Jiren was the best and most developed character with the deep backstory on how he got his strength. Man, Jiren was just a little clown that I don't even know what the point of that character was. Yeah, Jiren was goofy and not in a fun way. He was like just his existence is like a waste. It's like him, Manaka, and Goten. I'm just like, why are they even here? Like, what is the point of them? Remember how we didn't find out about his origins until like the fourth to last episode of Super? They just kept on having him be this mysterious, stoic character that's just sitting around. The way that people describe Jiren make Broly look like a well-written character. Well, the thing with the original Broly was he was just meant to be evil. You weren't supposed to sympathize with him. And with Jiren, he's supposed to be a hero, but then he acts all like a prick for no reason. And then he's stupid too because it's like your universe can get erased and you're supposed to be serious, and then you're serious while you sit here and let all your teammates get knocked out of the ring when you could take out everybody on the stage except for maybe two or three people. No, bringing back Gogeta for Broly was really it was just kind of lame because they never give any foreshadowing, and then the fusion is always only there for a few minutes, so we can't get any attachment to that character, and it's basically just a marketing gimmick, which is what Vegito, just to go to another fusion, could have had the opportunity to avoid. Because I remember when the future Trunks arc was going on, I saw some people were saying, "Oh my God, they're gonna bring Gogeta in this, and then we're gonna have a whole arc where it's him versus Zamasu, and it'll be two fusions fighting each other." And then we got maybe like one quarter of an episode like that, and then it was right back to Goku and Vegeta. And it sucks because Super really was stupid for what they did to the Patara earrings. Like making those non-permanent, it just was really really dumb. And they made me feel like an idiot because we saw that the Supreme Kai and Kibito, because they were fused since the end of Z into I forgot that character's name, but we saw that they unmerged or were unfused anymore. And I was like, oh my god, that means they're gonna use the Super Dragon Balls to unfuse Vegito when they have him beat the main villain of an upcoming arc. And then they announced that they're not permanent anyway. So like, what was the point of like they tricked me. They fooled me. I was really I was really thinking we were gonna get something that foreshadowed a really cool idea for a plot element, and isn't Super as a whole just a marketing gimmick. Yeah, it's only the last arc in the manga, the moral one, that actually seems like they're trying a little bit. Because I was saying that the the tournaments, the universe survival arc, was basically them just saying, "All right, to hell with it. Let's bring all these old characters back." And the future Trunks arc was supposed to be their big, cool attempt at making a like some kind of Z style story of stakes and consequences, and they just failed so badly. Man, I almost that really does make me regret that future Trunks came back because they ruined his happy ending. They screwed that up beyond. Because I remember I said the only thing I didn't like about him is that they didn't let him really get to have any victories after he killed Frieza in his first appearance. But I would take him only being in Z for what we got in Super. That was really bad. I don't know who thought that was a good idea. So I said some of these writers are just, a couple of screws are loose. Like we're gonna have him just completely fail in every possible way, and the only person that's gonna be alive by the end of his arc besides him from his universe is some 50-year-old woman that that we want him to be a couple with for some reason. Oh my god. I don't know why they couldn't have just let Vegito beat Zamasu or just something. Damn, not Zamasu, whatever his name is. Okay, Envoy says Ruben, that's pretty much Dragon Ball today with all the power upgrades. They're simply selling Dragon Ball merch and the marketing game. Well, there have been a lot of cool games. I just you can tell the series is no longer about actually telling a compelling story, but more just merchandise. Like the only reason you bring back Vegito is so we can see him with a different color of hair and you can make that into a toy. And sure enough, that's exactly what ended up happening after he made that little cameo appearance in that arc. And this dude gonna talk about, well, they had to make Vegito or Gogeta or whoever the hell only be there for a few minutes. And it was like, no, they don't, because time in Dragon Ball is horrible anyway. Remember, this planet will blow up in 5 minutes. 3 episodes later, this planet will blow up in 2 minutes. They could stretch it out if they wanted to, but they don't want. But now they want to pretend like they're so concerned about keeping time consistent, even though what it actually is that they have a mandate, and people don't like to believe this because they don't want to actually know what's true. There's a mandate in Super that Goku must be in every episode, so having him fuse with Vegeta into Vegito basically screws that up. I'm surprised that Toriyama hasn't yet made an alternate universe woman Goku yet. Most of shonen animes and fighting games already have. Well, not just them, but remember Earth, what is it? Earth 3, Earth 12. Like there's some Earth from DC where all the males are females and all the females are males. So that's not just a thing in Japan. That's what is it? Rule 63. They have that in a lot of different forms of media. Mr. Rubin. As long as they stick to their rule about having Goku in every episode, you're not going to see any of the fusions for more than 10 seconds. I'd say Gotenks is still the most likely one to have a role that's not crappy. But if he does end up reappearing, it's going to be in the manga, because in the manga they can get away with, oh yeah, it's been less than 5 minutes for 2 or 3 chapters. I don't know. I really like Gotenks. He was cool. He had good interactions with Piccolo. He was just I don't know why they don't let him be used anymore. It's stupid. I get why they don't use Gogeta or Vegito that much. That makes total sense because that involves not focusing on Goku or Vegeta for 8 seconds. If Toriyama made you a character in DBS, what would you be? Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks was really cool. I'll admit. Well, that's why he was recognizable. That this little kid that was ridiculously overpowered, and it makes complete sense. No, I said that earlier, Ruben, that they should have had the two of them stay fused, and then they wouldn't have had two characters that they don't use running around. That would mean that Goku and Vegeta found a way to reproduce without actually getting together. It's like that's our son. Oh my god! I just realized that. Theoretically, they could just have him wish on Shenron, "Hey, Earth is going to be destroyed if I don't stay in this form. Can I stay in it?" And then that would be it. Or they could just have, their arcs take place over a day or two. I don't even know how to answer Elliot's comment. If I was a character, I probably would be cool in my first arc and then get completely thrown to the trash after that. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Hey, Ruben, do you remember that scene in the Buu arc where Majin Vegeta like gets mad that Gohan's trying to stop him from fighting Goku, and he says, "This has nothing to do with. This doesn't concern you. This is between me and your circus clown of a father." I was telling this guy that the way that line is delivered and the fact that Gohan's right in between Goku and Vegeta makes it sound like it's some argument between Gohan's parents. Like if they make it sound like Vegeta's Gohan's mom, and then because he's in the Majin form, he's got with the black underlines of his eyes, like he's wearing mascara. Your circus clown of a father. It's like, and then imagine Goku's like, at least I'm not the one in makeup. Envoy says the Dragon Ball franchise has to be the worst in pacing fights. I mean, outside of Goku versus Frieza, which just was ridiculously long for oh my god. Um, I would say most of the fights are okay. Like the thing is in Z, some of them are stretched out probably more than they should be, but in Super, they're so ridiculously rushed sometimes that I just kind of don't really get that much into it. Like if you want to have a fight that's 2 3 episodes, I'm not really that opposed to that idea. I wouldn't personally do it because I just you know I'm not gonna. You know what I'm saying? It's just Super doesn't really have that good of a balance where it just seems like every fight is only a few minutes long. I think the Goku versus Frieza fight was really dragged more than any other fight I've seen in the frame. Oh yes, it's one. I think it's the longest fight ever in any cartoon. It's like 20 something episodes, 4 hours long. There are TV seasons that are shorter than that fight. This one person said they thought that it was that Goku and Vegeta were going to fuse into Vegito, and then the series was going to end with some like 2 or 3 hour fight between Vegito and Kid Buu that was going to be intense and funny. And I was like, no, there's no way they're going to keep them out of the finale. That would have been really interesting though, because again, we don't get to see any of the fusions really be on screen for that long. Like Kid Buu still has had more screen time than any fusion besides maybe Gotenks. Just let that sink in. And I always just think I'm like, well, Kid Buu's really in the last 11 chapters of Z. Like he's all the way at the end of the show. I can understand the build-up attempt, but at the same time, the pacing was really off. Well, that's why I said that it was doomed from the start because even in the manga, it's really long. So I'm agreeing. I'm just saying that the mangas, that's less so the show being filler based and more so it following the script a little too strictly. Yeah, there's not really an arc of Z that I dislike. Same thing with GT. The only arc I'm not really that much of a fan of is the first one, but that's because they're just like there's really, I guess, because there's not that much stakes because Goku's overpowered compared to a lot of those early opponents. It just kind of seems like they're just playing around with us. But with Super, however, every arc of that show I've got some gaping issue with. What do you think of Ledric from GT? Um, I don't remember having a problem. It was like him and General Real though. They're the only like pre-baby villains I don't really have a problem with. Oh, now I remember. I was gonna say that they could have used. I was really shocked they didn't try to use Gogeta or Vegito in the tournament of power because remember the entire tournament. Jiren is so strong. How are they gonna beat him? It's like maybe instead of having a new stupid transformation like a Ultra Instinct, they could have the two supposedly strongest members of Universe 7 fight Jiren and beat him as Gogeta, but like get eliminated while beating him, and then have I don't know, Gohan beat Topo. I would have liked that. No, no Envoy. The Frieza fight is the longest one in the whole show. It didn't almost drag out as much as Boo. It did drag out. It's the definition of being dragged out. And the Boo fight didn't really drag out. It was there were it was just that arc in general dragged out. So it's really disappointing. So many missed opportunities. I'm aware, but Boo was not as interesting, so it felt longer. It was the arc more so. I know. I'm just saying that I empathize with your viewpoint. No, Tournament of Power probably made the most sense to bring back one of the main fusions because we knew they could have done it, but they just chose not to. They're like, oh, you could both get eliminated if you're a fuse. I'm like, well, wouldn't that be more interesting than seeing the two of them purposely fight? I mean, think about this. You're in a tournament where the stakes are if all your members get knocked out, your whole universe gets erased. So wouldn't you use as much power as possible in trying to stop that from happening? No, Megumi, they act like the fusions don't exist with Jiren. They're like, oh, he's so strong. How are Goku and Vegeta going to beat him? Fuse, idiots. Merge. Go Super Saiyan 3 as Vegeta, or not 3 because 3's been turned obsolete by all these new transformations. Go blue as Gogeta or Vegito and take him out. There is no way in hell if Jiren was stronger than their fused form, that's just bad writing. There is no way in hell Jiren is like I don't buy it that Super Saiyan Blue Gogeta or Vegito is weaker than Jiren or Ultra Instinct Goku. I don't buy it. No way in hell. So I said I hate Jiren so much. They made him out to be like this ultimate threat, and it's just so stupid. Megumi says, I never was really into the blue transformation in Super. Me neither. The only form after GT that I thought was remotely cool, only forms rather, were Super Saiyan God because your eyes get you have like the red eyes and you get skinnier and slightly taller, and you have to have a bunch of different Saiyans to do it, so that's unique. And also Rose because it's blue, but it's with some kind of other key. Like it's just it's I like the look of it and the idea behind it that this other kind of God key makes you have an alternate color for the form that apparently is slightly stronger. But yeah, other than those, you can throw the rest of them in the trash. Blue is just a palette swap anyway. And it didn't have to be because there's an early sketch of it where it's got like a cape and some other crap on it, and that was apparently not good enough in terms of making the form distinct. So they decided to say, screw that. Hey Megumi, they got the recolor transformation. That's why we were saying we're gonna get Super Saiyan orange and purple and green. They're gonna call it Super Saiyan Health. God, I'm so tired of these forms. Like they're just so lazy. Because I remember with Ultra Instinct, people were saying it's not really a form; it's more of a technique because Goku's hair doesn't change colors. And then what did they do? They gave him gray hair. That's old. That's old man Goku. It's like they are so dumb. They were like, oh my god. So I said these forms are stupid. The writers are stupid. Just every. Whew. And just like with the moral arc right now, they have yeah Goku old. With the moral arc, they've got Goku and Vegeta both in that arc, and they have them get beat up by Moro without and it's like, why don't they fuse? Like they can use this technique whenever they want. Damn it, you know. Goku Grandpa. Oh, you mean Pan? All these new forms and just no new moves slash techniques. Yeah, Goku has like 2 moves and 8 forms. You got Super Saiyan 2, 3, God, Blue, Ultra Instinct. I remember when I was playing Budokai Tenkaichi 3, and you go on the character select screen, and Goku was the only one where there's like a whole bunch of crap after you click on him, where it's like you want to go regular Goku or Super Saiyan or 2 or 3, or Gogeta or Vegeta Super Vegeta. I'll just go with regular Goku, thank you. Oh my god. Hey Megumi, I know you like GT, but didn't that idea I had for the Super 17 arc sound way cooler? Where you have the fusions of Piccolo and King Piccolo versus the two 17s. Wouldn't that be way better than just have Goku fight 17 again, or not again, but uh, you know, wouldn't that have been way cooler? Because you know they didn't do much with Piccolo in that whole show, so that would have been his main chance to shine was to just come back and have a rematch him, with 17. Goku as a kid from old DB and fake kid Goku from Dragon Ball GT. You know, Ruben in Budokai Tenkaichi 3. If you put kid Goku from Dragon Ball, not from GT, against Pan, she's like, "Grandpa, you're a kid," and he's like, "I'm just a kid. I don't have any grandkids." He's so confused. I do think so. Piccolo is another character in GT that was just made redundant. Well, that's why when I was floating that idea of Baby having, like, if he had possessed Gohan as his main host instead of Vegeta, you could have actually had Piccolo have a main role in that arc because this kid that you trained to save the Earth is now in granted on the influence of someone else, but is now actively part of the attempt to enslave it. But again, I'll get around to doing that video later. I just the Goku Black one comes first because that was horrible what they did to that character. But yeah, I'm gonna get off of here. I hope you guys enjoyed this. They've turned these fusions that were these really cool ideas into these marketing devices that we don't actually get to see as characters. They're just stalls for time, which is disappointing. And it seems like they're always going to be that way because when you have a 5 minute time slot to make an impression, it's not that easy. So, thank you for showing up, and I'll see you tomorrow.